The tundra is an area where tree growth is inhibited by low temperatures and short growing seasons. The tundra is located in Alaska, Canada, Russia, and parts of Greenland. In the tundra, it rains about 15 to 25 centimeters per year, or 6 to 10 inches, and the maximum precipitation is during the summer. During the winter in the tundra, the temperature can range from negative 28 degrees Celsius to negative 50 degrees Celsius, or negative 18 degrees Fahrenheit to negative 58 degrees Fahrenheit. During the summer in the tundra, the temperature can range from 3 degrees Celsius to 12 degrees Celsius, or 37 degrees Fahrenheit to 54 degrees Fahrenheit. The tundra's latitude is between 60 and 75 degrees north. In the tundra, most of the soil is permafrost, which is ground that is permanently frozen. Permafrost has no cracks in the ground, so nothing can break up the frozen ground, and temperatures don't rise high enough to melt it. Frost is soil at or below freezing point of water for 2 or more years, 0 degrees Celsius or 32 degrees Fahrenheit. During the summer, it gets warm enough to thaw the top layer of permafrost, leaving just enough soil for some plants to reproduce. And since the ground is frozen, when the ice melts enough, it creates lakes and ponds that are found during the summertime in the Arctic tundra. The permafrost can reach 25 to 90 centimeters down, or 10 to 35 inches. The abiotic limiting factors of the Arctic tundra are: during the winter, there's barely any sunlight, and it's extremely cold, making it extremely hard for any life to grow. During the short summer, which lasts from 6 to 10 weeks, the sun is almost out 24 hours a day. Throughout the whole year, since there aren't a lot of big plants or trees, winds can range from 50 to 100 kilometers per hour, or 30 to 60 miles per hour. The producers in the Arctic tundra are Arctic moss, which lives in the bottom of Arctic lake beds, lichens, Arctic willows, which live in dry open places, or bearberries. The primary consumers of the Arctic tundra are caribou, deer, Arctic hare, and lemmings. The secondary consumers are the snowy owl, the seal, the Arctic tern, or the Arctic fox. The apex consumers of the Arctic tundra, depending on the region, are polar bears, grizzly bears, or Arctic wolves. Some predator-prey relationships in the Arctic tundra are grizzly bears and bearberries and salmon, caribou and grass or reindeer moss, and the Arctic wolf and caribou, Arctic hare, and lemmings. Some plant adaptations in the Arctic tundra are the tiny hairs that both Arctic willows and bearberries can grow to keep themselves warm in the cold weather. Arctic willows can also grow shallow roots, which allow them to survive in the permafrost. Some animal adaptations in the Arctic tundra are the polar bear's thick fur, which keep them warm, and that the fur is white, which allows them to blend in the snow. Another adaptation is the seal's blubber, which keeps them warm in the cold weather and water. Is the climate change, which is the increase of unnatural greenhouse gases in the troposphere, which leads to higher global temperatures. This would change the climate of the Arctic tundra, and depending on how high the temperature rises, plants and animals that thrive off of cold weather will be unable to survive, causing them to either adapt, change environments, or go extinct. If the temperature rises and cold weather plants die out and warm weather plants are not distributed to these regions, little to no plants will grow. This would disrupt the entire food chain. The cause of this impact is the production and use of objects that use certain chemicals and gases, such as methane and CO2. The effect that this cause has is a rising greenhouse gases in the atmospheres. There are ways to combat the climate change, such as cutting down on the use of fossil fuels and using renewable energy sources such as the wind or hydrothermal energy. One example of a successful solution is the Montreal Treaty, which banned the production of items using chlorofluorocarbons. In the Arctic tundra, all of the endangered species share one common thing, that they are all affected by climate change. One species is the caribou, the woodland caribou that live in northern Canada and western Greenland. On January 14, 1983, the caribou were put on the endangered species list. The reason why the caribou populations are decreasing are because of the harsh conditions, the decrease of food, and the increased precipitation and temperatures. The increased precipitation and temperatures cause moss and lichens to be buried under the snow, making it hard for the caribou to get food. Another reason why the caribou populations are decreasing is due to habitat loss due to human activities such as hunting, looking for oil, natural gas, and mining. There are about 2,500 left in the world. The caribou are a primary consumer. Another endangered species in the Arctic tundra is the polar bear. The polar bear is an apex consumer, and its status is vulnerable, giving it a 10% chance to go extinct within the next 100 years. Polar bear populations are decreasing due to climate change, the melting of snow, and the loss of habitat. According to the WWF, or the World Wildlife Fund, if the increasing climate trends continue, they will be vulnerable to extinction by the next century. According to the IUCN, or the International Union for Conservation of Nature, there are about 20,000 to 25,000 polar bears worldwide. Some recovery efforts for the declining polar bear population include the ceasing of aerial hunting in Alaska, the quotas that were imposed in Canada, and then trapping and hunting were banned in Svalbard. These efforts helped, but the biggest problem is not the fact that polar bear populations are declining due to hunting, rather due to climate change. Another endangered species in the Arctic tundra is the Arctic fox. The Arctic fox is a secondary consumer and is listed as critically endangered, which gives it a 50% chance of going extinct within 3 generations. This status only refers to a few species of Arctic fox that are located in Norway, Sweden, and the Kola Peninsula. The majority of Arctic foxes are on the least concern, which means that the population is okay and stable. One species in Norway, Sweden, and the Kola Peninsula are being hunted for their fur. The remaining amount of foxes in this area in 2003 are about 40. In 2003, the Swedish-Finnish-Norwegian Arctic Fox program started and lasted until 2008. This helped more than double Arctic fox populations and was successful in increasing the population to around 200 by 2008 and 2009 in the Norway, Sweden, and Kola Peninsula areas. The next species is the Arctic wolf. The Arctic wolf is the apex consumer in the Arctic tundra. Similarly to the Arctic fox, the majority of Arctic wolf populations are stable and at the status called least concern. In 1982 to 1994, Arctic wolves were on the vulnerable list. In 2004, the Arctic wolves were put on the least concern list. Certain populations of the Arctic wolf are declining due to climate change, the loss of habitat, and the shortage of food. It is difficult to determine the remaining amount of Arctic wolves in the world due to climate change and constant migrations. Populations can range from almost extinct to stable, depending on the region. Overall, Arctic wolves are stable and made a comeback in 2004. One of the unstable wolf populations is in the United States. Other than climate change, one of the main threats to Arctic wolves are poaching. Reducing the use of fossil fuels and increasing the use of renewable energy is the best solution to dealing with these declining populations.